Thursday, May 13th, 1948, a day which would alter the course of Jewish destiny.
It's now crunch time. The British mandate for Palestine ends the following day at midnight. If the Jews decide to declare independence, the newborn state will immediately face a threat of annihilation. If not, perhaps this historic opportunity could be lost forever. Here, in his home in Tel Aviv, David Ben-Gurion, the leader of the Yishuv, had to make the most difficult decision of his life, a decision that would have major repercussions for generations to come.
Some context. In all of human history, there has never been a love affair between a land and a people as deep and enduring as the one between the Jewish people and the land of Israel. Since time immemorial, Jews have yearned to return to their homeland, Eretz Yisrael, beginning with a call to Abraham of Lech Lecha. Throughout the centuries of exile, persecution, pogroms and massacres, Jews have never stopped praying 3 times a day, every day, to return to their beloved homeland. However, it was not until the end of the 19th century that practical steps were taken to advance this return on a national scale. Led by Theodor Herzl, the Zionist movement succeeded in galvanizing the Jewish people around the idea of returning to the land en masse for the first time in 2 millennia. But awakening the nation to the Zionist idea was only the beginning. The following years were replete with tremendous challenges in Palestine, from draining malaria-ridden swamplands to integrating diverse cultures and languages of immigrants, from combating Arab terror to garnering support from the international community. The Balfour Declaration in 1917 set the stage for Britain to be entrusted with securing the establishment of the Jewish national home in Palestine. In 1919, following the First World War, the League of Nations granted the British and French mandates over parts of the Middle East. However, it would take almost 3 decades of conflict, lobbying, local politics, rapid demographic changes, and international pressure for this plan to ripen. Following extensive lobbying by the Zionist institutions, on November 29, 1947, the United Nations General Assembly voted in favor of the partition plan, finally granting the Jewish people a state in the land of Israel for the first time in almost 2,000 years. The Arabs rejected the decision, immediately launching attacks on Jews across the land of Israel. Early the following morning, Egged bus number 2094 was traveling from Netanya to Jerusalem when, close to Petach Tikva, a local Arab opened fire on the bus, killing 5 Jews, including Shoshana Farhi, a 22-year-old woman who was about to be married that following week. This was the first attack in what was to later be the first stage of Israel's battle for independence. During the following 5 months until the declaration of the state, almost 2,000 Jews were killed in acts of violence and terror.
During those turbulent times, as the leader of the Zionist movement, Ben-Gurion had to grapple with several critical dilemmas. First and foremost, should an independent Jewish state be declared at this challenging time in Jewish history? Would such a declaration immediately plunge the nascent state into a fatal war? Would it perhaps be the most short-lived state in all of human history? Could the small army of so many Holocaust survivors triumph against the might of the Arab world? Behind the scenes, a real drama was unfolding.
Moshe Sharet, Ben-Gurion's closest confidant, had just returned from Washington, where he had met with Secretary of State George Marshall. The news was bleak. The US government was pressing strongly for a 3-month ceasefire, threatening an embargo if the declaration would not be postponed. Despite this immense pressure, Ben-Gurion went ahead as planned, going so far as to push Sharet not to express his own support for the American proposition.
On May 12th, Ben-Gurion summoned the members of the People's Administration for what turned out to be a marathon 13-hour discussion on whether to declare independence or accept the American deferral.
The group was sharply divided on the matter. It was not clear whether the disorganized and not yet unified defense forces would be able to withstand the might of multiple Arab armies. Ben-Gurion, however, was adamant. In unequivocal terms, he demanded that the members accept his proposition and declare the state immediately. After his speech, a vote was held by the 10 members of the administration who were present. By a hair's breadth, the vote passed 6-4. Ze'ev Sharf, Secretary of the People's Administration, remarkably said, "It is doubtful whether a quorum of Jews has ever been called upon to decide so decisively on the course of Jewish history." The British mandate was due to expire at midnight on Friday night, May 15th.
Ben-Gurion wanted to ensure that there was unity during this historic moment of the declaration, and therefore, in deference to the Shabbat, had the ceremony moved earlier to Friday afternoon at 4 p.m., a few hours before the onset of Shabbat.
A unique and special friendship had developed over the years between Ben-Gurion and the leader of Mizrachi, Rabbi Yehudah Leib Maimon. Despite their great differences in religious outlook, the two had a mutual respect and bond. They even decided to give their daughters the same name, Geula. At this moment of historic significance, Ben-Gurion summoned Rabbi Maimon from the besieged Jerusalem, sending a tiny broken airplane to bring him to Tel Aviv for the declaration ceremony. He wanted him, his friend, at his side for this historic moment.
Upon arrival here at Ben-Gurion's home, Rav Maimon joined the discussions about the final wording of the declaration, and specifically whether or not it should include the name of God, with some secularists insistent that it should not. Once again, Ben-Gurion found a path to unity, using the biblical term Tzur Yisrael, the Rock of Israel, as a term all could agree on.
Under extraordinary pressure, both from within and without, from those, even in his own party, who were opposed to the immediate declaration, and from the threats of the American administration, a self-proclaimed secular Zionist, David Ben-Gurion, was overcome with Ruach Gevurah, a courageous spirit of biblical proportions.
It was now, or perhaps never.
Ben-Gurion's courage, determination, tenacity and grit ensured that against seemingly impossible odds, the state of Israel was declared. Before the ceremony, Rabbi Maimon told Ben-Gurion, without a Shechianu blessing, it won't be a historical declaration. So Ben-Gurion said to him, Fishman, you want a state? You recite the Shechianu. And so, at the close of this historic ceremony, the leader of Mizrachi rose, shaking with emotion, his throat choked up with tears, and recited this heartfelt blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, שהחיינו והתגדלנו והגענו לזמן הזה.
No sooner had his tears dried up, bombs began falling on Tel Aviv. The combined forces of 5 Arab armies attacked, ushering in the second stage of the War of Independence, modern Israel's most bitter war. When the guns eventually stopped, 9 months later, Israel had lost 6,000 people, 1% of her population.
The question beckons, how could the chief rabbis of Israel institute the halachic day of Hallel and Thanksgiving at the earliest stages of the war, on the 5th of Iyar? Many thousands would die thereafter, and the war was far from being won. We normally only celebrate once the danger has been averted, when destruction transforms into deliverance at the war's conclusion, such as on Purim, Pesach, and Chanukah. Why was it different this time around?
Incredibly, leading rabbinic authorities explain that this remarkable Ruach Gevurah and almost otherworldly spirit of courageousness of the Zionist leadership of Ben-Gurion, Rabbi Maimon and the others, was no less miraculous than the victory of our warriors on the battlefield. Arguably, even more so. Less than 3 years after the horrors of the Holocaust, the yellow star of a downtrodden and desperate spirit was somehow revived into the blue star of vitality and hope. The dry bones in the valley of death had once again come to life.
By the grace of God and the indomitable spirit of Gevurah, courage, Jewish history took a giant leap forward, and Jewish destiny had been miraculously revitalized.